The movie opens with Brandon waking up from a nightmare, noticing that dawn has already broken. He prepares for the day, enjoys his breakfast while catching up on the news. Deciding it's time to depart, he heads to the airport where two men, Kyle and Jed, were engaged in a conversation near the exit. They were awaiting Jed's girlfriend, Ava, who unexpectedly arrives with her family's bodyguard, Brandon, hauling his luggage. Jed was caught off guard when Ava discloses that Brandon will be joining them on their journey, prompting her to apologize. Kyle initiates a chat with Brandon, humorously pointing out a few airport passengers and suggesting that any situation could potentially turn violent. Concurrently, Ava continues her discussion with Jed, who advises her that her family need not be involved in every aspect of her life. She reassures Jed that they'll mostly see Brandon from behind and he's always with them. Ava then plants a kiss on Jed and Brandon hands his phone to Ava as her father wishes to touch base with her. At the same airport, Marty and Hank, along with their granddaughter Rosa, were busy organizing their luggage. In the process, Marty remarks to Rosa that she's beginning to resemble her mother and more, and as they traverse the airport, Marty hits at the surprise destination, piquing Rosa's curiosity. As they proceed, an airport staff recognizes Ava as the governor's daughter, and while Hank and Rosa were engaged in a conversation, Rosa accidentally drops her teddy bear. As Ava, Jed, and Kyle stroll, they discuss Ava's law school and her career choice, which she isn't particularly fond of. Meanwhile, Rosa was frantically rummaging through her bag for her misplaced teddy bear. In a hurry, she bumps into Ava, causing Ava's coffee to spill on her clothes. Ava reprimands Rosa, who was frightened, and runs back to Hank for comfort. Ava, realizing her overreaction, feels remorse and decides to find the teddy bear herself. Rosa's smile reappears when Ava returns her lost teddy bear, and later, Ava approaches Brandon and reminisces about their shared past. She expresses her gratitude to Brandon for his continued presence in her life, despite her being an adult now. On the plane, flight attendant Danilo greets everyone before they board. While walking inside, Brandon informs Ava that they've passed their seats. However, Ava clarifies that they'll be sitting separately as they're boarding from the rear. During takeoff, Danilo demonstrates safety procedures. When Kyle mocks him, Ava scolds him and makes him stop. Later, when Kyle requests a drink, Danilo spills it on him as a form of retaliation, leaving a satisfied smirk on his face as he walks past. Meanwhile, Rosa and her grandparents were thoroughly enjoying their flight. Ava observes that the plane isn't very crowded. Kyle jests that the plane is old, deterring people from taking the risk. Jed explains that not many people book flights on the chosen date. And shortly after, birds collide with the jet engine, causing some turbulence in the plane. The crew reassures everyone, asserting that everything will be alright. While Rosa was gazing out of the plane's window, she notices that the jet engine was gradually disintegrating. Alarmed, she quickly alerts her grandmother and panic ensues, and everyone fastens their seatbelts, and suddenly, a fragment of the jet engine strikes one side of the plane, creating a breach. Passengers not wearing seatbelts are sucked out of the airplane due to high pressure. Efforts to rescue some are futile, and they're pulled out by a strong vacuum of pressure. Brandon and Ava exchange a glance as the plane begins to descend, and the plane crashes into the sea, resulting in several casualties. Brandon is hit by a small piece of metal in his chest during the fall, and Kyle breaks his hand upon impact. After a while, the airplane slowly submerges into the sea, and the middle part of the plane fills with water, but the rear part remains above the surface. Danilo enters and inquires if everybody was alright, and while seated, Brandon suddenly emerges from the middle part, carrying Marty and Rosa. Brandon quickly removes the small piece of metal lodged in his chest. Tragically, Marty has drowned and lost consciousness. Danilo immediately performs CPR, successfully expelling water from Marty's body and reviving her. They ask about Hank, and Brandon sadly announces his demise. Tears are shed and Jed is anxious, but Brandon reassures and calms them, and he suggests that they stay in the airlock for safety. Danilo mentions that the pilot radioed before the crash, so help should be on the way soon. When Kyle hears this, he tells Danilo that he said the same thing and that they would be fine, and Brandon then silences Kyle, asserting that Danilo was indeed correct. When the plane's internal air supply starts to deplete, Brandon instructs Danilo to find an alternative source, but their efforts are unsuccessful. Marty then proposes using an oxygen cylinder she noticed with a passenger, And acting on this, Brandon retrieves the cylinder from underwater. Before his dive, Marty requests him to bring back Hank's hat, and bravely Brandon dives, securing the hat and the oxygen cylinder, but is suddenly ambushed by a shark through a gap. Despite the shark's attack on his side, he manages to escape, delivering the oxygen cylinder and a hat to the group. He advises Ava to keep her distance and apologizes, and then bids goodbye. Ava observes the severe wound on Brandon's side, and he encourages her to remain strong before being dragged back into the water. The group witnessing this retreats in fear, and Ava mourns Brandon's loss. Marty, noticing the group's declining morale, suggests that they regroup and strategize. They then attend to Kyle's injuries, setting his broken bone, which causes him severe discomfort. Meanwhile, a rescue helicopter is dispatched to locate the crash site, with the radio operator emphasizing the urgency of finding a governor's child amongst the survivors. Jed advises Ava to take action, but Ava prefers to wait for rescue to avoid meeting Brandon's fate. Shortly after, the airplane's structure weakens due to the water pressure, and water begins to leak in. Jed reiterates that waiting for rescue might not be the best strategy, but the group disregards him and continues reminiscing about their lost loved ones, some shedding tears. They notice the water turning red as sharks feast on bodies above them. Danilo inquires about their remaining time, and Ava estimates it to be around 3 or 4 hours, and the plane starts emitting buzzing noises, but Danilo dismisses it as insignificant. Jet rolls his eyes, and when Danilo notices, he comments that Jet doesn't trust him because he's just a flight attendant. Jet retorts that he has an engineering degree and explains that the airplane's structure is considerably weaker than that of a submarine built for underwater conditions. He warns that the plane could collapse at any moment, leading to a flood. Shortly after, the plane's lights go out as it continues to descend, and they find themselves in a seamount's edge, and any slight movement could cause the plane to plummet to the ocean floor. The plane starts malfunctioning in new position, tilting to a steeper angle. Recognizing the danger, Ava suggests that they have no choice but to try to swim to the surface. Jed expresses worry about the sharks, but Rosa recalls a lesson from school about sharks being scared of bubbles. However, Jet points out that they can ascend without air, and they discuss potential solutions to the air problem, but struggle to maintain their morale. Ava promises to come up with a plan to ascend, and Ava excuses herself to use the restroom while she breaks down in tears while looking at a picture of her and her mother. And meanwhile, the rescue helicopters locate the crash site. The divers spot the airplane near the seamount's edge and swim toward it, and the group continues their search for items that could aid in their ascent. Rosa asks if she's scared, and Ava reassures her that they will make it, and after some time, the two scuba divers arrive at their location, bringing hope to the group. However, they encounter a shark, leaving the group terrified after seeing the diver's severed leg. The two soldiers in the plane depart due to fuel shortage, trusting the experienced scuba divers to handle the situation. Inside the plane, Ava and the others brainstorm escape plans. Meanwhile, Jed accidentally falls into the water and struggles to stay afloat. A shark spots him and drags him underneath, and despite Ava and the others' attempts to save him, tragically, the shark severs one of Jed's legs. Jed screams in pain, and Marty quickly ushers Rosa to safety, away from the water. Marty administers first aid to Jed and bandages his severed leg, and Jed asks for Ava about the severity of his injury, and she reassures him that bleeding has stopped. Marty explains that Jet lost his leg below the knee, and Jet, torn between tears and laughter over the incident, accepts Marty's help while Rosa was comforted nearby, and Danilo stands, moves cabinets, and opens a compartment at the back, handing a flashlight to Ava. Ava mentions that the special equipment that they need was on the right side. Ava dives down to retrieve the equipment when suddenly an octopus appears in front of her. She surfaces holding one piece of equipment, and she notices that there are only 4 left. Kyle notices that Jet looks pale and asks Ava to check on him, and Ava talks to Jet, reminding him of his desire to go to Alaska. She assures him that they would go there soon, and Jet replies that Ava always says that, but Ava insists that this time it's for real. She then apologizes to Jet for getting him into this predicament, and during a discussion, Ava saw something unusual on the window. An odd sound soon followed, causing everyone to turn their attention to the window. Marty examined Jet's pulse, offering an apology to Ava, which left her confused about the reason for the apology. She discovered Jet was unresponsive and attempted to revive him through CPR, with tears streaming down her face. Danilo stepped in, realizing that their efforts were in vain. Ava was devastated, blaming herself for Jet's demise, stating that he had always shown bravery for her, but she couldn't do the same. Marty covered Jet's body with a jacket as the noises from the airplane intensified, signaling further damage. Ava evaluated the situation and urged everyone to evacuate immediately, and Kyle, however, was doubtful, fearing that they might become shark bait. Ava suggested using bubbles and gas canisters for breathing, as Rosa had recommended. They had plenty of canisters, and all they needed was scuba equipment, and Ava noticed Kyle's unease and asked about his condition. Kyle shared a traumatic childhood memory of a near-drowning incident where his father failed to help him and he barely managed to resurface. Rosa asked how long he was able to hold his breath, to which he replied 2 minutes, and Ava reassured him that it was enough. Despite the escalating noise, they continued with their preparations, disregarding the sharks that Ava spotted outside the window. Ava and Rosa engaged in their dreams and future plans. Rosa aspired to be a veterinarian, while Ava intended to complete her law degree. Kyle inquired about their plans after their escape, and Danilo disclosed his intention to marry his partner, advising Kyle to be cautious in matters of love. As Ava approached Jet's lifeless body, another sound resonated, and the plane began to shift. Kyle was terrified as the plane started to slide. Ava asserted the situation outside the window but didn't share her observations with Kyle. Skeptical, Kyle checked for himself and noticed that the plane was cracking. He found a can of drink and consumed it to soothe his nerves, and even though the plane split in half, they managed to stay safe. Ava reassured them that they could still make it home if they avoided impulsive actions, and she proposed that they share the scuba tank and ascend together, emphasizing the need for immediate action. As they prepared to leave, another sound and a shift in the plane's position startled them, and Marty asked Ava to look after Rosa, reminiscing about their zoo visits where Marty would keep an eye on Rosa. Marty comforted Rosa, assuring her that her grandfather's spirit was still watching over her, and Rosa agreed tearfully, and Marty entrusted her to Ava. Ava instructed Rosa to pull the cord if they encountered a shark, and they put on their goggles and began their journey. Marty expressed her pride in Rosa, and as Ava and Rosa descended, they created bubbles to ward off any sharks. Danilo and Kyle followed, but Marty decided to stay behind, whispering a final request to her husband to watch over Rosa. Kyle noticed Marty's decision and returned to help her, but a shark attacked him, leaving Danilo with no other option but to continue. Ava and Rosa continued their ascent, coming across a deceased scuba diver for whom they took an oxygen tank. They were joined by Danilo, who indicated that he was the only one left, and they shared the oxygen and detached the tank from the diver, preparing to surface. Suddenly, Ava pulled the cord attached to Rosa and Danilo, enabling them to ascend. Upon reaching the surface, Ava spotted a shark, and they managed to evade it, but the airplane sank, and Ava began to sink. She struggled to swim up, but eventually lost consciousness. Her life jacket brought her to the surface, and upon regaining consciousness, Ava searched for Rosa and Danilo. She found Rosa's teddy bear floating nearby, and soon helicopters arrived and threw a rope to Ava. She was relieved to see Danilo and Rosa safe, and when asked if anyone else was left behind, Ava denied anything. Rosa mentioned her grandmother, but Ava shook her head sadly, and Rosa hugged her, crying. Ava handed Rosa the teddy bear, but Rosa remembered her grandfather's advice to keep the bear with her during tough times. And now, believing the difficult time was over, Rosa threw the bear back into the sea, and the movie came to an end. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch our next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you on the next one.